Hello, my friends. We are so glad to be doing our first YouTube Live. And gotta admit, we are so excited to hear from you guys if you have any comments and questions. But today we're going to be talking about concrete countertop DIY and a review that we're going to do. We have 7 things that people have asked us about, and we're going to review that right now in a short video for you to see if maybe this is a project that you would like to tackle. So
if you don't have anything to do this Friday night,
that's right.
You got us for a little bit.
You've got plenty of time until the hardware store closes. You can go get your concrete, everything.
Yeah.
Tools, concrete, mix, everything that you need. But we wanted to first go over.
So we're just going to talk to you as if you're here in our kitchen and
Yep.
you just walked in and said, what is this countertop? And I can move out of the way, right? You can see.
Yep. So first we're going to
from
talk.
a far view. So probably the first question is like, concrete, isn't that rough? Isn't the surface rough? And I will move out, but you can see kind of some reflections in the back. It's very smooth the way that we chose to do it. It's smooth and it's glossy, which means that water, moisture wipes off. It doesn't absorb in. It's not stained.
And we picked that we wanted a shiny. I know that when you're going to get all the different types of countertops, you pick what kind of surface finish you want. And I wanted shiny, 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 as shiny as we could get. That was also food grade. Like I didn't want to use like some miscellaneous, something that was going to be bad for food prep.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about what we chose and what we did.
Right.
But you don't have to go
no,
like
you can
that.
do matte.
You can do matte and still seal it, which is very important. Because if you don't seal it, if you pour the concrete and then use it as a countertop, I expect you'll stain it. I haven't done that.
Yeah. And it would be it would, after you sand it and all the different things, it would be smooth, but it still would be like concrete.
Yeah, we have a sample. So before we made ours, this one, I made 2 samples because I didn't want this to be my first attempt.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I did the samples, but one of them we chose to seal it in a matte, and it is still very smooth, but it's not glossy. And the one thing that glossy does for you is not just the smoothness, but the color. Whatever color is in it.
Wait, before you go color,
it brings it out.
Talk about though, we had several people ask us, but how big of a surface did we do? So behind us, we have a run that is 13 feet, but it's an L. So you can see it's an L. And
12 feet long this way and then another 7 feet that way.
Wait, 12 feet? Oh, so it's
12.
bigger than 13. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so somebody asked that. And then what we're talking to you on right now, we did 2.
It's like a 4 foot by 5 foot and a like 3.5 feet by 5 feet. And
we'll talk about things that we would change the next time we did it in another video, because we had several people ask us like what did we learn, and we did do a review. We did a pros and cons review that we'll link to somewhere either in the description or above. But so getting on to color, I wanted as neutral as possible. And I wanted a marble look. So we tried out several tints and stains on those practice pieces that you did in order to get a neutral color. However, we had an oops, which was, do you want to explain?
Sure, yeah.
I wanted to cry when we first did it.
We took the natural concrete gray type finish and we purchased a white colored dye for concrete. Not to be mixed in when it's wet, but after it's all poured and dry and done, you put this on. And we did not like it. It looked like, we have white cabinets, and it just looked like snow, like frosted concrete. So we then changed gears and said, well, maybe we want darker. So we bought some black dye type stuff.
And we thought that white and black would make like a gray.
Right.
Like a gray color.
And
that was not the case.
It did not. this shirt is blue, and this is about what it turned out like.
And the thing is that it didn't appear that first time we were doing it. It actually looked gray when we were staining it after, and we chose to do color afterwards, which we'll talk about that later. There's many steps that you can choose as far as the coloring process. But when we came back in the next day, we had I called it Smurf blue. That's the best color I could go with.
And we were not going for blue.
No.
So we started sanding.
Yes.
Started getting sandpaper and sanding that color back off.
But the beauty of that then ended up being is when we did finally put another color over top of it, it had that marble look that I was looking at, but with not a lot of effort.
It gave it dimension. Right. So there's still shades of blue in places.
Right.
And we just went with a gray natural type color in the end. And that's what we ended up with. And
all of this to say, you can choose any type of color that you want. Just because we chose a neutral color does not mean that you would have to. You could go a striking color, you could go a neutral color, you can go lighter colors, you can go darker colors. So there's a lot of color variety that you can get with concrete. You don't have to quite go you don't have to go at all like we did. We're just telling you that the coloring possibilities are out there.
And not only to have the gray base to start, but they make a white concrete.
Right.
And so you can really take that any direction you want without having the gray influence to start with.
And we'll talk about the cost difference later on about going white or just regular color concrete. So a third thing that we're going to talk about is pouring in place or precasting or pouring off-site and then bringing it in. So in summary, we chose pour in place. So they were brand new cabinets. We had never used them. They were fresh out of being put together. And we just covered them up and put our form in place and poured over top. I thought we were crazy.
Yeah. I did not. Crazy. That's not what I wanted to do at first.
No.
I didn't trust myself because I'm not a concrete finisher. So
yeah, we're total DIYers. So this is just
my original idea was I'll pour them outside in the basement and I'll bring them in. But I didn't want to do that after our design had this giant L that we just talked about, a 7 foot by 12 foot. And I wasn't sure how I was going to get that in place. I wasn't sure if it would crack upon me picking it up.
We didn't know if we had enough friends that could pick that heavy of a thing up, and we didn't want it seamed. We could have seamed it, and we didn't want that. And so, yeah.
So the more research I did, and the couple tests I did, I got the confidence and the guts to go for it. And yeah, like she said, we had brand new expensive cabinets, and we covered them in plastic well. And poured it in place.
And I'll say that we did, after doing this, we talked to our friends who did decide to pour off-site, and they had great success with it. So it's not a right or wrong way of doing it. It's just what's going to benefit you the most for the size. And again, that's what's so awesome about Concrete Countertop is that you can customize it to any size.
Yeah.
And then you're carrying it in or doing it in place, but there's just so much variety. I mean, that's why we love these. We feel like ambassadors to concrete countertops, but there's a lot of choice in that as well. Pouring off-site precast or pouring in place. So the fourth thing that we're going to talk about is edging. And we got a lot of questions about what kind of edging and just tips for it. So we have a couple of tips.
First, let me try to show you
what
our edges look like.
Bring it over here.
This is a good corner. There we go.
So it's a bull nose. It would be exactly like if you were going to do your granite countertops or laminate countertops. You would go in and pick, do you want it straight edge? Do you want it single bull nose, which is what this is, or double bull nose, so there's two ledges? Do you want it decorative like a rope? Do you want it stone on the edge? I believe the company that we went with had 11 different types of edging. So, and that's about, I know when I was looking at granite, they might have more or less, but it was right in that ballpark. You still have to figure out what edging you want to go with. So that was kind of.
There's still so many options.
Yeah.
There's so many options. And I know somebody that made their own and they had a rough looking edge.
Yeah.
And we said, how did you do that? And he said, I just waited till it wasn't quite set up. and then I roughed it up with my hand.
Like with his hand.
And it looked great.
Yeah.
It looked, very natural.
And you could go as simple as doing a 2x4 or some type of like wood edging and have that. I mean, so really you could, we paid for our edging, which was plastic edging, and we seamed it, and it looks very finished and polished.
It looks manufactured.
Right.
It looks like you cut it like you would for stones.
Right. Okay, so a fifth thing that we're going to talk about is customizing it. And that's like using, if you're looking at granite and it's like the really top end granite where it has veins of sparkle, which is what I wanted. Or you could do glass, or you could do mica flakes, or you could do bits of pebbles. We've seen.
You can put pebbles in, you can put sand in, and then when you sand the surface, it can get sparkles in it. You can put pieces of glass and do the same thing. You can embed seashells in it, and you can actually pour or cast the sink directly in there. And actually, let's talk about that for a second. Ours is not. We dropped a stainless sink into it. So everybody wants the kind of sink that you pour the water right in. We did that, but we didn't cast it, right? Like I said, you can make the entire sink assembly with the countertop out of concrete.
And in my opinion, this is when, as a DIY project, this customization definitely takes a skill practice if you want it done well. We've done several at this point. And I haven't even begun to do the glass and the seashells and everything. As we are out and about now, we see it and we're
next time.
Oh, I know, that's true. We do want to do it next time.
Yeah.
But I would say if you were trying this out the first time, second time, that's definitely maybe a more advanced DIY skill, or just one that you'd have to practice a little bit more. Yeah. So if we're doing a true DIY review, that would be something that maybe I would practice on your practice pieces. And
one thing about customization, one reason we went for it is because we had a good space to fill, good big space, and we wanted a lot. And if you're counting the dollars with square foot with quartz or granite, you're like, I would like that size, but it's going to cost so much. Well, if you do it yourself, that cost is very small. Concrete is very cheap as the raw products as you make it. So. Talk about customization. You want a giant area, go for it.
And I'll go even just as like a little tip with that is that we had the countertops in, and at that point we didn't have to wait the 4, 6, 7, 8 weeks that it was going to be for somebody to come in from the design process to getting the other stone countertops in here. So that was also a DIY perk, is that we set it on our time schedule and we did it. And it didn't take all that long. So that's just something that you might want to keep in mind if time is of the essence and you are looking for something for a DIY project, again, to do this weekend. Yeah. So a sixth thing that we want to talk about are cracks and chips. We've had several people ask us that as far as this being a DIY project, does it hold up to the other countertops that we've had or have been around? And so we have a couple things to tell you about that. The first one is, if you want to bring it over here, does it just crack and chip? No. But from my sink to my dishwasher, right here, I've nicked it a few times. So somebody asked me, like, in my pros and cons, yes, here is one of my biggest about it. When I take the dish out and I miss sometimes because I'm just distracted in some way, it has had some nicks. Now, I don't mind it personally. It's not like it's crumbling off. It's not catching. But if you can see, there are a few right here in front of my dishwasher. That's the main place where I've noticed it. And if you want to see a video on how we're going to correct this, make sure you subscribe because we're going to talk about it. And if you want to see... what was the other thing we were talking about? Oh, and the other place that I did notice it is my children sit on the other side. We might as well show them this part of the countertop. My children sit on an extended part that we have right here. And the bar stools that we're sitting on right now, I don't know if you can swing it over here. He will turn the bar stool and it'll hit right here. So if you notice, there's no other nicks or cracks right here, but my little one likes to hit it right here. And we've had that conversation, so it does happen. And we're going to talk about this overhang in another video because, again, that's that customization that Andy did. As far as when I priced this out in granite, it was just more than what we were going to spend. And so I brought it to him and he was able to. So
a couple chips.
Yeah.
And after 4 years of use, there's not many chips and issues. And even those areas have not pulled in stains, colors of something nearby it. They're still the same color. And one of these days I need to take my sealer that I have from the excess here and put a couple coats on there. And I expect it'll blend in with everything else.
Well, we even talked about maybe using if you sign up for our course, we actually talk about how you fill in the holes and nicks. We're going to try to do that, but we'll do that in another video. But let's talk about the seventh thing that a lot of people have asked is, after 4 years, how have I cleaned it? Have I cleaned it the same way as I would other surfaces? And have we had to reseal it? And have we seen stains on the seals that we have? So first, I do not use any specific product on. Mm-hmm. Somebody just asked me it the other day. I like Norwex products just because they're less chemical, but I have used Clorox on here. I've used water on here. I've used, I just clean it normally. So I don't use any different products in order to clean it.
It's not sensitive. It's not, should you use abrasive products? I think you could. I mean, we have taken our pots, pans, plates, and slid them across hundreds of times, and there's no major issues here.
We use our kitchen. We have two small boys, and we entertain and cook a lot. So we use our kitchen. One thing that somebody did ask me was, do I put hot pots directly onto this? And I do not. I wouldn't if I would have high-end material either, just because I don't want what if it would stain? Oh, but I did notice after Easter, one of our Easter egg dyes did stain. It was pink, and we had been coloring the Easter eggs. It did stain the countertop, but I took a little bit of Clorox, wiped it off, and it was gone.
Yeah, so it didn't stain it.
Temporary stained it. I guess I'll say it that way. Yeah. So after 4 years, we have not resealed it.
Nope.
I don't see any streakage or anything that would even need to be able to seal it.
I mean, while we're talking about that, I mean, the coating that we used is an epoxy-based coating. So there's a two-part epoxy, mix them together. That does make it very hard.
Yeah.
But it's worked really well.
And I think we did several layers.
We did, probably 4 or 5 coats.
Yeah.
But they were quick and easy. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that again. If you have any specific questions that you would like us to answer, these are the 7 that have been most frequently asked to us on all of our social media sources. So if you have another one that you want us to address, we would love to. We did have somebody ask, when we did review it and did the pros and cons, how is it held up? Can we see pictures? And we showed you the places that it didn't hold up as well with the cracks. But other than that, we have nothing to report. We love them. We would do them again in a heartbeat.
So if you haven't seen us before, we have a lot of other videos on YouTube and on our website, pinktoolgirl.com. And if you're up to the challenge or interested in possibly doing this yourself, we have a course coming out in just a few weeks that goes through the whole process. And it's a webinar.
Yeah, we're going to do a webinar first.
For the course.
Right. And if you want to ask us questions live, you can do that on that webinar. So here's 2 ways that you can keep in touch with us. First, you can subscribe, and we put out content weekly. Or you can go on to pinktoolgirl.com, and there's a link below where you can get on our email list, of which we are going to be emailing out the 3 different live webinars that we're going to be doing within the month of May. So if you're watching this in May 2021, we are going to be doing 3 live webinars, of which you can ask us questions live. And if you're interested, you can get our course that we put together. It's a lot of hours and hours of great content put together in order to help you do this yourself. So I think that is it for our first live YouTube.
This was fun. Your Friday night plans now.
you guys can go enjoy your Friday, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.
See ya.